Welcome to episode 1 of Motor King's podcast. Let's give an introduction. And I'm trying to act natural.
Should like get somebody with a little trumpet.
If we can find a midget, just comes in like their forehead. Okay.
You see a forehead house and the trumpet raised up.
The thing is, I'm like, that's so Danny Duncan. He already has a black midget. We can't really copy him.
Well, and you can't call them midgets. So we're going to have to get all this
short people?
Little people.
I feel like that's more offensive. But again, this is not a podcast about short people.
I do think... Welcome to our new little people podcast. I think little people does sound way more offensive.
Yeah, but, midget, I'm like, that's like your trademark.
All right, let's restart this.
Okay, yeah. No, it's hilarious, but we cannot. But then we will be canceled. But do we care about being? Do we care about being canceled by little people?
Do we really want them in our families?
I prefer no little people subscribe to us.
Big people.
Is that
big people power?
Yeah. Okay, so
have you seen that, dude?
Big people power?
Well, no, it's a little people. They're like we're basically like freaking KKK things, and they're like, you're just a bunch of biggers because they're big people. It's like little people only. So, anyways,
okay, so well, I think that we should give a small introduction to who we are, what we've been up to, and
so
why.
Say something like,
well.
Welcome to episode number 1 of...
Oh, you want like a full introduction?
Well, yeah.
Was that it?
Are we doing the little people segment?
I mean, I'll look at it. I'll consider
in case. Welcome to episode 1 of Motor Kings. No. I mean...
Well, hey guys, welcome to episode 1 of Motor Kings podcast.
You wanted just to be the one that's...
Okay.
You go ahead and say it.
3, 2, 1. No, we can't do that.
We could do that.
You can be the... You just be the introduction.
No, we can both say it.
3, but I used to do that with Johnny and Samson.
It could be funny. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to episode 1 of Motor Kings podcast on the Motor Kings podcast channel. I thought you were going to say it with me, but you didn't keep following with it.
Bro, because I did that for Up and Up, and anyways.
Oh, yeah. Because nobody wants to be the one not saying it?
Mostly because it just like seems like it fits, but then every time I like edit it, I'm like... No.
Just cut one of our audios out, dude, if it's
we'll just use one. We've said it like 4 times. Okay, so anyways. All right, so...
What do we do here at Motor Kings?
Well, we like cars. I mean, I did think before the episode, I was like, we should talk about like how we fell in love with cars. But then it gets into like playing PS2 games. Like, do we want to go that far back? Or do we just want to talk about like...
Well, I mean, kind of. Because I feel like that's the thing that the younger generation doesn't necessarily understand. And it's kind of like... I mean, they do because they played, just like PS4 games instead of PS2 games. Yeah. But I don't know. I think it's something that like a lot of us can relate to. It's just like playing freaking Midnight Racers or whatever it was that we played, that Japanese game. And then...
Well, it's funny because last night, like...
Forza 4, Forza 3, or not Forza, Gran Turismo 3. Pow, chicka, pow.
Dude, last night, like an audio on my wife's TikTok popped up, and instantly I was just like... What sound did I make? Do you remember? Anyways, it was the to the window to the wall.
What game is that on?
It's Underground. It's the opening menu for Need for Speed Underground.
Yeah, that's right.
And like as soon as like a little bit of it came up, I started like singing along with it. And she's like, "How did you know it was that song?" And I'm like, I feel like that song is baked into my brain because of Need for Speed Underground. But I mean, I don't know what the first time I liked a car was, but essentially, it was PS2 games, Gran Turismo, Need for Speed.
Yeah. Our older brother.
Yeah.
So it's like video games. And honestly, I'm like, I think I'm a personal believer that a lot of like hobbies come from just how you're brought up. Like the fact that Ken Block's daughter happens to be into rally driving. Whoa. Like it's obviously because I mean, you grew up like that. But also I do think that sometimes there's things that draw you more to a certain thing. And I think since we had the introduction with video games and our older brother to cars, we also just like something about cars really freaking sick.
Dude, because I mean, like, I don't want to go too deep into it, but it was PS2 games, and our older brother had a 240SX, and he would get into cars, and he had a CRX after his mission. And then it was just like, okay, so there's a basis of interest. I like the Corvette, and we played every Need for Speed that came out. We would get a Hot Pursuit, right? And then I feel like though, like the peak for me of like young liking cars and actually learning about models and like all this different stuff was like dude, when I was 18, 19, my daily routine was Forza. What at that time it was Forza. I think it's Forza Motorsport 4, just like beating the game. Basically,
I think it was 3 because it was our buddies.
Yeah, but it was Forza Motorsport, not Horizon.
Oh, Forza Motorsport 4, and then Forza Horizon 3.
Yeah, and Top Gear. I just like binged Top Gear and played Forza Motorsport.
I know you binge Top Gear, and so you're like, dude, I'm craving cars, and you go play the game, and you're like, a little bored and tired. I want to watch Top Gear, and you're like, I'm craving cars.
It's like back and forth. Yeah, no, 100%. And then I remember I was on my mission, which I'm okay talking about my mission.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was on my mission, and like my buddy was like telling me about the Ford Focus RS and all this different stats. And every time I would go to a member's house or I would be at someone's house, and I'm like looking at the magazine, like Road and Track or Car and Driver, and they have all the stats, dude. It was like I didn't know anything about cars. Like looking back, like what I know about cars now, I still feel like I don't know that much about cars. But yet back then, I literally only knew that I'm like, well, Bugatti's like $1 million.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you should know like baseline stats. I know there's 0 to 60 times, and I know how much they cost.
Yeah.
And like when I see one, I can probably pick out the brand. But like I thought I was like,
maybe this is why that you've always been way better at the like. You see like a fraction of a second of like the rear quarter panel of a car, and you're like, oh, that's what this was. I'm like, really, was it? And then we figured out it was. That's always something you've been better at. Even now, I'm now that I've like gotten way better at just like identifying a car really quickly, or just like, you know, you're still like just way better at that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it might just be like a basic like
personality,
like who I am, personality, like my eyes. But I'm like, I will say that like, yeah, my whole growing up, it was like a fun game to like look out the window and see if I can find cars from games and magazines and shows and stuff like that. And then every time I get interested in a car, I don't just go, oh, that car is cool. Let me like get some pictures of it. I'm like, okay, what generation is it? What makes it special? Like, what are its past generations? And then you go through that whole rabbit hole of like figuring out what you like about a certain car. And then it's like, soon I'm like, oh, that's an 8th gen F-150 actually, because I bought an F-150 one time and I wanted to learn everything about it. So now it's like, even though I've never been into, for example, WRXs that much, like I knew some basic ones, but I'm like, now I know that my favorite two is like 1st gen, and I actually don't know what the gen is of the other one, but I'm like, dude, the 2011 hatchback, I always bring that up. I'm like, that one and the 1st gen. And the 1st gen STI WRX was never in US, so you have to import it. So I'm just like,
just things you like. Yeah, and the funny thing too is that like, I don't know, it's just the thing that's awesome about a lot of cars is that you can go forever. Like I still learn things about my E36 that I'm like, oh dang, that's sick. Like I just learned that this special X brace that you can go buy for an E36 from a lot. I mean, it's still a part number that's being produced, which is cool. I love that about BMW. But it's like the X brace underneath only came on E36 Evos and LTWs.
Wow.
So I'm like, dang, dude, it's weird. That's weird too to put them on. Yeah. And I'm like, so mine has it. And I'm like, and I never really realized that underneath when I was sitting under there. Oh yeah, that's what that is. And but I just barely learned that, and I've had that car, the Evo, for I don't know, 2.5, almost 3 years now. So I'm like, just crazy.
Well, this is exactly why I had that idea for like an app, and usually when I have an idea for an app, I'm like, oh, I don't want to like tell anyone because they might take it. But I'm like, this one, bro, if someone wants to go through the work, I'm not doing it.
It's a lot of work.
So I'm like, someone else do it, then I can benefit.
It's not just some guy that's like, oh, I know programming, I can do this. It's like, no, I mean, yeah, it's just like.
It is just programming and 3D modeling, but like my idea,
that's not the hard part of this.
No, I mean, imagine if you could go on a website and you pick any year and any trim and any option of any car, and it pulls up like a fully detailed 3D model where you can like zoom in past the front bumper and you see where like some bolt is, and you click on the bolt and you can see like what the thread
almost like a
pattern
like
is.
How BMW owners know like real OEM.
Yeah.
But except now it's like you have a 3D model of it.
Well, yeah, because sometimes I'm like when I had my M6, because of a front end collision, it didn't have some brace underneath, and I would look at the car part websites, but like, you know, things are separated. It's like, oh, this section on this page, oh, this section on this page, but it was like something that connected the two, so I could never really figure out what went there, but I knew something was missing.
Always a frustrating thing.
And I'm like, if I had like a 3D model, I'd be like, oh, and then I click on it and see the part number and see prices. I'm like, bro, if someone wants to make that app, dude, I would pay monthly for that app. No, I would love that. But no, it's true that like
actually I wouldn't. Is that what you're saying? Or would you?
No, I would love that. I would use it all the time.
Would you pay monthly?
I would pay monthly.
How
much? Not a lot. 15 tops. You wouldn't pay $15 for that?
That's pretty nuts.
You wouldn't pay $15 for that?
Okay.
So if someone wants to make that app, but
Kind of going back.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I agree with you that even though you can literally study the Wikipedia page for a car, like a 3 Series or an M3 or whatever, and you literally own multiple. Like, I've owned, this is my 5th Civic from the 90s now.
You're still
4th
learning.
hatchback, and there's still so many things I'm learning, and I just barely did a full rebuild on a B18C1 GSR swap into an EG hatch, and yet there's still things I'm like, oh, I'm curious about this, or how am I going to do that, or like, what do people do when they want to do this? I'm like, everything is just new.
Yeah, I think that's something that when you're not super experienced in cars, that's one of the main reasons why you want to learn about cars, like working on them. It's like, then everything's going to be easy and I'm going to know everything. And you're like, no, dude, you could be like literally 40 years into this, and the only thing that comes better is that you have tools and you know how to use them.
Yeah.
And you kind of just know how to figure things out. But it's like, you're going to still have to figure it out, and some jobs are still going to suck. And I'm like,
no,
dang, man.
Well, like, even like,
better than paying a mechanic somewhere else thousands of dollars to do it, I guess.
Honestly, I think if you want to work on cars and be happy, I mean, I'm not going to say that if I worked on cars every single day, I wouldn't be happy. I mean, you do it. But I'm just like, I think that my situation with the Civic was unique enough that I'm like, yes, when it was beginning and I thought it was going to be simple, and it was like only weekends, I'm like, I was so excited to work on the car. But towards the tail end there, when it was like the first of the year, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna be able to like drive it home today and show our brother, and like it didn't work, and literally I didn't like start dailying it until 25 days later. I'm like, no,
honestly, it's not that bad.
No, I'm like, it's not that bad. I was pretty far, but like learning all the problems, having to fix those problems, having to pull a transmission out again, even after like you feel like, okay, I should be done, I can move on from that. Like when you've mentally checked it off, some project off in your mind, and you like need to go do it again, like,
oh, trust me, I know.
I was getting burnt out. And so even now, like imagining doing a similar job on a different car,
yeah,
I'm like, but I'm like, hey, that's what we're here for, you know?
But I mean, if you were to do it again though, it would take less than half the time.
Yeah, way less time. No, 100%.
But yeah, so kind of going back, I feel like that research is something that we both love, but you also did just a ton of. So that's like how you've learned about cars. And I mean, that's the thing. We had an older brother that had like a turbo Civic and 240SX and a CRX that was gutted, and this was definitely like, he's quite a bit older than us. I mean, isn't he like 9 years older than you? Yeah, so he's like
13 years older
13 years older than me. So it's like, but it was enough that it like influenced us, that like, yeah, his buddy would pick me up in his S2000, and then he would like, hey, like, while I'm driving, why don't you shift like for me and like kind of teach me manual in some sort of way. And I'm like, that's enough right there. That kind of a seed.
Planting seeds.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And then for me, I kind of got forced down the mechanical path really fast because I mean, I don't know, like I knew I loved cars and I wanted something sick, and then basically because I wish I would have just gotten into it sooner, because I spent a bunch of time just wanting to get that car, whatever it may be. I mean, it wasn't expensive. It was like $1,000 cars that I had on my mind, on like a Mustang, like a New Edge GT. This is back in like 2016 prices. So I'm like, Mustang GT, a Miata, I mean, maybe
we were
a
into
Civic,
E36 possible projects.
E36. Like these are all things that were so attainable for somebody that was making what I was making, because I was pretty decent at as like a bus boy. But got a Miata, blew the motor, and basically knew, I'm like, crap, dude, I just like bought this car 2 days ago, blew the motor on like my first night of really just having fun with it, which was just equal to me and Ethan in his RX-8 traveling from parking lot to parking lot and doing donuts.
Before you did like an oil change?
Oh no, I didn't do an oil change. I bought it from a chick that she loved the car, but I mean, I ended up seeing it when I like had to rebuild the motor, popped off the oil filter, and I had like over a year before, like it was like a year and 6 months before that I had that car stamped like a date on it, and I was just like, holy cow, like this thing's been going on like over a year. Oil, she dailied it, she took it on road trips, so I'm like, it's probably got like 10,000 miles on this sucker, and I was just like pinning it. I mean, I could have been low on oil. Like I didn't know what I was doing. Like the most difficult thing I knew how to do before this was like an oil change. So yeah, now going from not like barely knowing how to do an oil change to hey, your car just blew up that you spent like $1,000 on,
which is all your money.
Yeah, all of my money in high school. So, but the lucky thing is that I literally had like 4 classes of auto shop. Every single possible like elective that I could get an auto shop class, I did it. I even like retook ones because they didn't have any more available, but I can retake them again, even though I passed it before. So I just like retook it and did it again, just so I could spend more time in the shop rebuilding my car. And it took me about a month, which I'm pretty happy. I'm like, it took me a month to, which I mean, like, yeah, if I go to Snapchat, memories that I have, me pulling it out, me pulling like the oil filter, internal oil filter, seeing all the shavings of the Rodbury metal, and then when I had it driving again, at about like end of January to like first day of March. So it's like, but then after that, I was like, dang, dude, I freaking know everything on this car. So then, like, you know, things broke, like master and slave I need to replace, but I did it in my own, and I'm like, it's nuts. I would have never have known how to do that. So sometimes you got to be forced down that. And so,
and it's like similar sort of this my Civic.
Yeah. So I'm like, and then I sold the Miata to go on the mission, and then got back, got the 335 that you had, and I was like, dang, dude, Beamers are sick. Because I remember also in your truck driving up north to help mom and dad move, and I saw an E36. It looked like an M3, but who knows? Drive past on the other side, and I was like, that's it, dude. I got to get an E36. So I listed the 335 as like, or trade for E36, which I'm so glad I didn't. Because there's this one I was actually tempted for.
What was like
it was $4,000 on top of this, but it was like 180,000 mile, which isn't horrible.
Yeah.
E36 M3 convertible, but I had a hard top, and it was paint matched. Really good paint, like repainted.
Was it auto?
Automatic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, thank heaven. Because, I mean, you'd always be like, yeah, no, I'll manual swap it. I'm like, no, you won't.
I know, dude.
Once you realize how much work, I mean, like, unless it's just like, there's no other option, or this is such a sentimental car, of course, I'm all for it. But in that situation where I'm like, go sell that thing for $9,000, $10,000, and buy an E36 M3 that's manual for 12. Like, there's no reason to go through that headache. To have something that's like, you got to swap the cluster, like everything's going to be different. So I'm like,
yeah, dude.
Yeah. Thank heavens I didn't do that. So, and then, I just kind of went on the journey of like trying to find what you like. And then that's, I mean, it's really fun to do that.
Yeah.
Go through the journey, find what you like.
This is why I don't really keep cars for very long. Like, most people are like kind of tease me for it. Like, oh, you'll never keep a car long enough to whatever. I'm just like, I'm kind of glad. I've switched cars basically every year. Since like for the past 10 years,
even, like sooner, yeah,
and like a lot of times sooner, and like for me, I've got to experience so many different cars and figure out what I liked in a car. Now, I still think that I think a person needs 2 cars, one easygoing automatic daily that they don't really care that much about, and then like a special car, or more. But
I mean, that's a good way to put it.
Minimum is 2.
Yeah, 100%.
If you have one car,
even right now, I'm like, my minimum's bad to turn into 3. So I'm like,
you gotta have a truck, you gotta have like a track car, you gotta have a project car, like. Yeah, no, for sure. But I just think like the reason why I can never get into like working on cars is because I'm like, well, it's my daily. If a project takes longer than a weekend, I'm like, I can't get to work, and that's always scary. So you never want to work on your daily.
Horrible feeling, dude.
And that was kind of my problem in the beginning of like my like buying cars I liked, because in high school I never got into cars. I just drove the 95 Camry that our parents gave us, and then later on, like when I was like 20, 21, my dad kind of, our dad. Dad kind of forced me into. I mean, he's gonna be like, I didn't force you. He's gonna go mad at me for this, but I'm like, kind of was like, he's like, just really pick a car.
Yeah.
He's like, you like the Focus? He's like, I have a friend that has a good Focus, 19,000 miles, so go get it. But it was just like a regular SE Focus, and I was like,
but the cool thing is, I mean, actually, no, because your mission, you did learn about the Focus RS, but I'm like, I bet that coaxed you to getting the RS.
100%. Well, because the thing is, for me, I was like, okay, at least it's like a hatchback. It's a cool red. I'm like, it's not manual, but I can't even drive manual right now. So I'm like, I was like,
you literally learned manual low-key in the RS,
dude.
You stalled it like 3 times going home.
Well, this is like actually a pretty sick story. Is like when I had the SE Focus, I kept thinking, man, I want to learn how to work on cars, but I want it to be a car that's like cool to work on. Even back then, I knew there was like an awareness that I knew that like working on a car that isn't at least a little bit cool just isn't really that cool for me, and that's just my opinion and perspective. But I'm like, I don't want to pimp out an SE. I want to pimp out an ST. And so I kept looking on prices, and I'm like, yo, bro, I'm like, I bought this for 13. my payment's easy. And I'm like, STs are like 15, 17. I'm like, I could get an ST. And then at least I have like a turbo. And I kept looking at videos of like dudes like rallying STs, and they're like, this is pretty capable. And I'm like, that'd be sick. But then I don't know, we're kind of impulsive buyers, and I kind of like just kept going, well, maybe I'll get like a nicer ST, or I'll get a newer ST. And then I'm like, well, an RS. And then I'm like, well, I can get a used RS. And I'm like, oh man, they have a special edition red RS that just like came out. And I was like,
exactly my situation with the E36.
Oh yeah, you just like keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it until you're like, I will not settle.
Yeah.
And so,
I'm after you talked about the story, I want to talk about how I'm like, I think most people should do that.
Yeah.
I'm tired of seeing SEs pimped out.
Yeah, it's
and
like,
the kid deep down at least wants an ST.
Yeah. 100%.
And I'm like, why'd you do this to yourself?
I know you put a bunch of money and time into something that like you still like. No one should have to experience pulling up and like they have an SE or they have like a non-SI Civic 10th gen or something like that, and somebody with an SI or someone with an ST or whatever comes up and they're just like, I don't really have that car. I bought a 128 instead of 135. Now those can be respectable.
Yeah,
but I'm like, that's a whole different.
No,
but it's like
if
you don't want to
feel 135, then yeah, why did you get the 128, dude?
Right, that's like if
and
you don't.
A lot of people, we don't have money like you. You think we're getting money?
No, like we were poor, and that's the thing is like,
and it's like we didn't have great jobs. We didn't go to college, man. I was a busboy, and I figured it out. So I'm like,
part of it is just like picking a car that's in the price range is the least cool. I'm like, that's why I still think Civic, Miatas, older cars like that, old Mustangs, I'm like, are like good options when you don't have a ton of money, but you want to get a car that you can mod and do performance mods on and stuff like that. I'm like, so no, I 100% agree that I wasn't going to pimp out the SC. I got the RS. It was way too much money. I had it for like 8 or 9 months, and like I enjoyed the crap out of it. The whole time I was like, two things. One, it's brand new. It's a special edition. It has a warranty. I didn't want to like mess with that. So like even like when I would find cool things like wide bodies or big turbos or like lips and you would drill into the body, I was just like, dang, I don't want to do any of that to this brand new car. And it's cool that you brought that up, that like, yeah, I didn't know how to drive manual. And so I practiced on a few friends' manuals. And then essentially when I bought
Whose cars did you practice on? Was it Jet and Ethan?
Well, Ethan, not Jet, but Ethan. Oh yeah, sorry, it was Golf. I thought not Jet, the Mustang.
Jet is the Mustang. I said Jet and Ethan.
Yeah, so not Jet, just Ethan, his Golf. And then Brandon had a Kia Soul manual.
Oh yeah.
So I practiced on the Kia Soul.
I remember asking him if I can practice on that too.
Yeah. We were both learning at the time. So when I bought the RS, literally leaving the showroom floor, I'm like, okay, just remember how you did it when you practiced. And like, I think I did good. The only problem was like, I was okay at starting, and I still killed it a few times.
Stuck, right? Isn't that what you're talking about?
No,
that was with the Mustang.
Yeah, dude, when I test drove the Mustang.
I hate that, yeah.
No, but like,
big boy
when
stuff.
I left, it was fine. And driving was fine, and I was doing pretty good. But just like the feeling on the freeway when you're in 6th gear and there's a lot of traffic and it's first time driving manual and you're in a very expensive car that you just probably bought, there's just this feeling of like, I don't know what to do if someone starts like stopping. You're just
the only thing is you remember people telling you put your left foot on the clutch and your right foot on the brake, like so you don't kill it while like if you have to brake super hard. That's like I remember like thinking about that all the time. Like if something happens, both feet down.
Yeah.
I'm like,
and so just like remembering all those things, but it's just nerve wracking. And then still like for like a week after that, I'd still have moments where I'm on a hill and I'm like stressed out because someone's like really close to me behind me, and I'd still kill it.
Even though you
had
like hill assist though.
Sorry. Yeah, dude. I was just bad at the time. But then eventually you get good and you start like rev matching everything, and then like you're just like, dude, smoothly going on a corner and like second gear rev matching as you go into the corner, like you get good and it's fun.
Yeah.
And then you didn't ever forget it. Like I would go like I went like a year or two with no manual, and then like I get a manual and it's like immediate. Like it's like riding a bike, you never forget.
Yeah.
But honestly for me, like I got rid of it because there's not a lot of tuning and because it was like that new car vibe. But this is a big moment for me, and liking cars and getting deep into cars is learning about the N54, because when I learned about the N54 and I learned that you could like tune it like really big, that's what I wanted, that the RS was not giving me. I was like, I want something that's like got like a huge massive ceiling so that I can go somewhere in between there and I can like kind of choose where I want to be. Single turbo was something I always wanted to do.
And this is definitely past the point that you're like we weren't, I don't think they're smart enough that we're like, but like reliability is actually a big deal. Because I bet if you knew mechanically what you knew then, but you knew how unreliable they could be now, I don't think you would have gotten that.
Probably not, but that's why I did go for 60,000 miles. I went really low mileage, and then I got something that was like
something pretty solid. Like it didn't have any issues. Really.
No, never. The only issue, it got a misfire, and then I replaced the coil pack, and it's fine. But like, no, I got one that was reliable just because I knew that people were saying it was unreliable, but I never trusted that things would be unreliable even though people were saying they're unreliable. I'm like, but I'll be fine. And like the big thing for me though is like not that it can just be tuned, but also that like the modularity and like evolution of engines. So when I realized that the N54 turned into the N55, and the N55 is in multiple different cars, and the N55 is also in the M2, and then like the better N55, which is an S55, is in the M3 and M4. I was like, bro, they are like, it's not just like a bunch of random engines. It's like, and it's not just BMW, it's a lot of manufacturers, but this was a BMW thing that like got me really into BMWs. Yeah. So I was like, even E46s, like it's like an M54, right? And then you have the different displacements, and then you have the S54, and they've been doing it forever. And I was like, oh, this is so sick. And I remember like sending you screenshots off Wikipedia, like, bro, the N55 is just a little bit more modern N54, and it's in the M2, and then like an S55, and it's just like a better N55. And I was like blown away because I like that kind of organization.
I love BMW's organization.
I know. Yeah. I'm like, it's so nice. And then nowadays I love it because I'm like B58s and everything, and the new S68s and everything. And I'm like, people might say like, oh, it doesn't make it special. And like you brought that up, and I'm like, I kind of agree. But I'm like, I always think more aftermarket. For the future, I'm like, the amount of B58s that are available for swaps, I'm like,
it's true.
Because like it's essentially,
there's lots of people that will say like, well, are you really gonna swap those? But I'm like, yeah, people are swapping S55s into the E36s. Like it's a common thing to do. I see that all the time.
Well, if we can do all the 2JZ swaps we do, I'm like, if B58 gets enough support, which it's looking like it's going to, I'm like, the B58 is going to be like a dream swap forever. And then if like you have the money, an S58 it will be even better. Yeah. So I'm like, every single time I think about like, oh, maybe I get an old car and I put a more modern engine, my mind always goes to a B58. And then lower down that, an F54. And then like lower down that, like an M54. I'm like, any of these engines that BMW has made are going to be fun and cool and sound good and are like semi-reliable. M54 is the only one that I'm like, But I'm like,
really?
Well, the N54 is the only one that I'm like, no, the M54. That's like, it's hard to...
Yeah, so the N54.
The N54 is the only one that I'm like,
because it's like...
not that reliable, but everything else, I'm like...
If you're going to have to go through all that work to friggin' swap, you might as well just get something that's like a little decent.
No, 100%. But anyways, no, the history of like learning about...
There's a lot of N54 swaps, E36s too, that I've seen.
Yeah. Well, it just seems like, I mean, they're both inline sixes. They both kind of like lay the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like...
I mean, you could fit a big old turbo in the E36. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I think what's funny is I've had an M6. M6 is the most intense, complete, because like I always go back to the RS, like that car felt solid, and I always thought M cars probably feel the same way, and for sure the M6 felt solid and it had a ton of power. But I'm like, the 335i XI with it was like full bolt-ons, you know, stage 2 plus or whatever. I'm like, that one is the one that like had the most like, holy crap, this thing's fast, which is weird because like the M6 was definitely faster. But like down low, not really. Like your 135 stock N55 kept up with the M6 down low. The M6 would pull after like 80, but I'm like, the 335i, if I had that now versus the 135i, it would guarantee it would just pull early.
I know, it's so funny because what I was used to before, because basically what happened is he had the 335 and then he knew that I liked it and he was kind of wanting to get a daily truck and kind of then take the cars that direction. But then I bought the 335, so we both like experienced that. Like jumping into it from something that's like not that fast. And I mean, I was like really not that fast because I was the Miata, but dude, I remember it did feel just really good, but it's probably just because we weren't used to really good cornering cars. Because I remember I would go through the canyons near where we lived, and I was just like, this thing is like solid, dude. I freaking loved the way that thing was. But and then you get on the freeway and you pull. Like literally, like the only thing that beat me was like a freaking GT350 Mustang. Like, that was the only thing. But now I didn't race everything I saw, obviously. So no, there would be a lot more stuff that beat me. But I'm like, you're definitely making like 420.
Well, that's the weird thing is like I always would look up numbers and I was like, we got to be only making like 380 to 420, like in that range. I'm like, the people were beating. I'm like, this just doesn't make sense. Like I saw a Camaro SS and it had like all these badges that like it had like a supercharger on it. I'm like, dude, this thing's got to be pulling like 500 or 600 horsepower. And I had like I was moving at the time, so like I was in a fishbowl 335 and like you could see all my crap in there, and I'm just like this like kid, and he's all like revving at me and everything, and I'm just like literally bus lengths.
Yeah.
And I was like, either it's all fake badging or like, I mean, this thing's secretly like, I mean, what if that thing had freaking upgraded turbos? I didn't do anything on it. It just came stage 2. What if it did? I don't know. Things
definitely is possible. XI. I just want to see weight.
335i. Yeah. I'm gonna give it a 3400.
Whoa, there's no way that's it, right? That's got to be the F30. Saying 3800. No. But because the XI adds a lot.
Yeah.
People are saying around 3600. There's no way.
Makes sense. I mean, United 2, it's bigger.
Yeah, so about 3600. When you compare that to, I think that's why though, because I mean, yes, it's kind of heavy for 400-ish to the wheel, but I'm like, because you say to the wheel, right?
Yeah. I never looked up like crank numbers. I'm like,
okay.
So crank.
Because what is
like,
the N54 stock? Like crank. What do they advertise?
Oh, crank, like 3. I mean, it's just like a little over 3. It's like 320 or something like that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but they always had like some weird, and I think this is typically for ISs. But they always had some weird like overboost torque thing. Even the RS Focus RS said 350, but the torque, I think both numbers were like, oh, for 7 seconds of foot all the way down, it gets a few more psi of overboost, and that's what gets it to 350. It's not actually constantly 350. So I think it had that, and it would go to like 370 torque, but I think that was only on the IS.
Oh, wow. But yeah, so, and that's probably, I don't know.
I mean, once you torque it, or once you put the psi out the whole time through a tune, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter. So I'm like, about 320, and then all of that stuff we did. Yeah, I'm thinking, and also how, like, I feel like ever since turbo engines started, BMW, it's not accurate, the crank.
Yeah.
So, like, it's always like pretty similar, the crank to the wheel.
And maybe it's the torque we're feeling that like it was like, oh, felt so fast. I'm like,
yeah, we're
the
going
torque
from
was always
cars
like
that have zero torque to just a whole ton of it.
Well, and think about it, it's like always the torque number that goes way higher when it's a turbo engine. It's like 390 horsepower and 470 torque. It's like,
I know,
which is insane.
Because BMWs before that were just very not torquey. I mean, like the E60 M5 and the E90 M3 were just not torquey at all.
I've been watching some videos about the S65. I'm like, you know what I would love to do? And this is like, now we're kind of getting into just like regular stuff. I do want to talk about the origination of Motor Kings, but
I kind of want to like keep going where we're going, but I know where you're going.
I was just going to say, like, dude, you know, be sick is buy a 1M, but it just has an N54. So take the N54 out, put an S65 in the 1M, because it's like the same generation as the M3 E92, so it kind of deserves that. Put the S65 in there. Take the N54, put it in some other project car, like a 6 Series, old 6 Series.
Yeah, you could just take both.
Yeah, just like swap them down. Anyways,
no, that would be sick.
Don't talk about.
I've always had a thought of like a 135. I do a crazy wide body on and on S85 swap it. But
so before you talk about anything Euro E36, I mean, you can, if you're not
before I talk anything about the Euro.
Yeah. I want to talk about like, okay, we like basically when you turned like 2021, and I'm like 4 or 5 years older than you, so when I was like 25. We decided to move across our state to like the southern part. It was more warm. It's where we grew up. And at that time, neither of us, I mean, you had my old 335 and I literally had the truck
for like a month. And then I was like, I'm getting rid of this.
I know. And you're like, it's just not my thing. And I'm like, honestly, even now I still think you would have sold it. But I'm like, both of us are kind of like,
it was a good car. Yeah. But yeah, I mean,
no, I mean, and I had a cool F-150 that I pimped out and we were into cars. But I definitely was like never planning on selling my truck. But at that time that when we moved, we were both like, bro, I mean, I had some success with a podcast and with a couple other like content creation things. So I was like, bro, like we need to make videos about cars. We both love cars. It's our thing. Let's start a YouTube channel. And I remember like the day, because I already had like some camera equipment. The day we were... Oh, I mean that was before we moved.
That was,
we were in the basement,
that was like in the process of moving, kind of thing.
Yeah, we were gonna move, and then we were like, okay, like what's the plan?
That's where we came up with the name.
Yeah, we came up with Motor Kings. I remember like being in the aisle with the Hot Wheels when we started thinking about the Kings kind of thing. And then what's funny though is like, I thought for sure, weird. I thought Motor Kings was in that office upstairs, real estate office, when we came up with the whole Motor Kings fits in like a license plate, and that's how cool it looks.
It's possible,
but that's where we came up with Gaming Kings, so maybe that's where my memories get mixed up. But anyways, I remember like
include Gaming Kings.
Yeah, we're cutting that out. But anyways, no, but like, we were in Walmart Hot Wheels, and we were thinking about names, and we go down into the basement. We were talking about like, okay, like what are some goals, and how often do we want to make videos? What do we want to make videos about, and what's the vibe?
Our first year, how many subscribers? I think 100,000 is completely
I think that
doable.
We could get a living by the end of the year. can support ourselves. I mean, at that time, like two single guys, like probably felt that way. But I'm like, but no, like when we did first move to St. George, and we were like, okay, let's just make a video, and we just were like, okay, let's just like, let's drive up to the hill, and let's just talk about how BMW is like the best. And dude, honestly, like
in the middle of the video, like, do you even think BMW is best? Because this was before I was like, I don't know,
like really, yeah.
So
And
I
like,
think I was still more like into JDM, I guess.
yeah, there was just this moment like in the very beginning when I'm like, oh, let's start talking about it, and then I realized I'm like, do you agree with me? We're making this video, and you're like, yeah, I think it's good, but no, that first
There's
video,
a good chunk when you got the 335. I was like, dude, BMW is so nerdy or something like that. Like I thought it was like kind of just lame, but I don't know what I thought of BMW then. Like I can't really remember like why I thought it was nerdy.
Yeah, I mean maybe it's just because like I'm your older
like,
brother, and I'm like. Engines and numbers and nerdy
yeah, I
stuff.
think it's you're like, did you know that I could freeway race people?
Yeah, and you're like, that's not what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, now that you understand, there's like so much history and cool stuff with BMW. But no, like I just
remember our freaking edit of freaking BMW history.
Oh, honestly, dude, I still look back and I'm like, it's so weird that like most people's first video, like if you look at Mr. Beast's first video, it's just like him alone playing Minecraft. Same with PewDiePie, like awkward. But I'm like,
it's nice that ours is like,
dude, I look back at that
it's just
first
very
video,
genuinely us. Like people might be like, it's not that great, but I'm like, it's just us, man.
No,
like,
yeah, it was just us like trying to make the best video we could. And I remember every time I watch it, I'm like, oh man, it's just a vibe. I love that video. And so we made that first video, and then we're like, let's make more videos. And we've been through so many different cars and like stages of Motor Kings when we had like the freaking apartment with the 2-car garage and the Hondas, and that's where you got your E36 and my M6, and like, oh man, we've just been through a lot doing Motor Kings, and we have a lot of goals for it. But dude, you should talk about the
yeah, I mean, and it's funny because then I brought up in that video, so we moved down now, brought up in that video, I'm like, man, I really want an E36, but I'm like, they're so expensive. I said like a joke like that, and it's true. I'm
what's funny is we put up a picture of an E36 and it was like 17 grand or something like that.
Yeah. Which I'm like, now it's like starting to become more legit because the price are coming down.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure like after that they shot it to like 25 is more. Ugh. But like that's like a decent one. Like we're talking like around 100,000 miles, good paint, everything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah. Then I really started liking the idea of E36. But first, you had your truck, and I was like, dude, we're in southern Utah. I want like off road, so I got like a 91. This is something I'm like, I want again, even though it's like make fun of Jeeps all you want. An OG Jeep. Those are good cars. Yeah, yeah. And I think everybody would agree with that. Like a brand new Jeep, those are the things that are rough. I'm like a 91 where I have that inline 6 fuel injected. Everybody, the 4-liter, like it's incredible in motor. So I'm like, man, I'm so glad I got what I got because that freaking YJ was incredible. It just, I ended up not really being a rock crawler, and I was like, I didn't have any money, and off-roading is way more expensive than just like modifying a normal car.
Yeah.
So got rid of that actually super quick, like 3 months, and then copped a CRZ because this is when this was like peak bad prices of gas.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, yeah, we're looking at $5.50 where we're at. It was like $9 for 85 in California. Like,
crazy.
I think it may have been more like $7.80 or whatever, or $8, but it's like still that's ridiculous. Like, so that's when I got the CRZ because it was one of the only like manual hybrids you can get.
Yeah, and it looked sick.
Yeah, honestly, like, and they had a sick Mugen version that was supercharged.
Yeah,
that was a race car. That was sweet, but obviously I didn't do that to mine, and mine was pretty beat up. I don't think that my battery was really doing anything. Like I remember it shows you the battery life.
Yeah.
Like, and it would go down as you driving. If you're driving to using the battery and not supplying the battery, mine would drain like so fast. And I'm like, and you'd have to let it like charge back up for so long. So, but anyways, didn't really care. I still got like 40 miles per gallon. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. The price
you got that car for, still, I'm just like, dang.
I should have gotten that one though. That had the center exhaust. That was way cleaner. If you remember, there's 2 up for sale around that price.
Yeah,
that one was like a few hundred more, but that was really good.
Yeah.
But anyways, but then that's when I was like, dude, I think I really want an E36. Gabe's like, get a 328i. Like, don't ruin an M3.
I mean, I do still think that I'm like, if you're gonna buy an M3, I'm like, I mean, because this is like under the impression that US M3 E36 is like the only option. I'm like, dude, if you look at the horsepower numbers, I'm like, get a 328i and like do the whole body kit and do either a turbo or do a bunch of NA mods to make it faster or swap in a motor.
Which I agree. I mean, like, this is the tough thing about being an E36 owner is like we're the only one that you could fully just mimic with a body kit.
Oh, because there's no wide.
There's no wide fenders and nobody's going to be looking underneath for your subframe reinforcement. So
true.
That's it. But then I was like, get 328. How about this, Gabe? Basically, I see. I'm curious how many people have ran into this, but like Doug DeMiro video pops up. E36, because I'm like, all right, I want to see about an E36 M3. Of course, he's never reviewed an E36 M3 US. He's only reviewed one, the Euro. So, or now two. He just really did his second E36 M3 review, but this one was a GT, a Euro. He didn't even review the LTW. He reviewed a GT.
Dang.
So, yeah, I'm like, so I went and saw that, and I was just like, holy cow. Like, this is so much cooler than a US.
Yeah.
Like, this is different. And I'm like, I'm telling you guys, as a almost 3-year owner, like, I feel like I am more qualified than anybody could possibly comment on this video. It's so much different.
Yeah. No, it is like, honestly, I'm like, we don't have to get into like super detail of like how you got it. I mean, like you found it on.
Basically, it was pretty cool because I knew exactly what year I wanted. The only thing I would do differently now is like try to wait for an M Rain interior or a slick top. I kind of wish I would have gone for a slick top because what a headache that would have been solved. But it's all right. I mean, things will be worked out. But other than that, I'm like, I knew I wanted basically after 96 because I wanted the Evo, and I knew that there was for a few little bit, there's like 10 months of production, BMW decided to start using aluminum doors stock. And then people, the only thing I've seen is that people complain about the noise. So they stopped. Like the noise of like the doors, the way they shut, and like the creaking. Yeah. So they stopped. And I snagged one right in that production. So mine's a March 97. So mine has the aluminum doors. I've also verified that. It's not just off the production number. But I'm like, so yeah, I got like literally the ideal one. It was cool because Rise is like, I'm doing that. Like I'm looking on Marketplace and I'm like 25 grand for a US spec. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. When I go look at the Euros and they're just $10,000.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that could seem like a lot, but I'm like, this has been the best car of my life.
Yeah.
People go buy a $55,000 Toyota. And I'm like, they're great cars too, but I'm like, they don't think that's bad spending. Mine's only stayed like overvalued, like since I bought it. So
well, and like, dude, the feeling, like we have a video of us going up to Seattle and buying that.
I hope this for everybody.
No, dude, and that's the thing is like when we went up and bought that and like the feeling up there and walking into that import place with all the freaking R32s and like super stuff, I'm just like, and still today, like watching that video with the music and everything, I'm just like, oh, bro, that was like euphoric. Like that was
only
crazy.
wish I would have filmed more, and we filmed quite a bit.
I know we did film quite a bit, and I wish that we literally just like put GoPros on our head or something. But I'm like, no, that was such a sick moment.
I remember driving around after that because remember we had to go to the DMV. And then they were like, oh, we're having an issue, so we're closed. Yeah, and I couldn't leave because the guy was like, you have to get this like temporary title signed over today, or else like, I don't know, something weird. Like he's gonna notify the cops, but he's like, not just because it's like legally I have to. There's something weird. Like it made sense. Like that sounds like he was screwing us over, but he wasn't. I just had to go to the DMV that was like. Right, like 10 minutes away.
There was like a weird line outside.
Yeah, there was a huge line, and like the power was out. Classic freaking Seattle bullcrap, dude. But and I remember just like, okay, so we just like drove around for a bit while we're waiting for like the power to go back on. Because I remember like seeing all the lights were out on the street, and then the lights flipped on, and I was like, oh, let's get back over there. And it was actually super nice. All the people were like, oh, he was waiting. So like all the line like let me go through with my
crazy.
Yeah, and get my thing done. That was kind of nice. But I remember driving around, which now I think about it, I'm like, for sure, if I saw that car, especially because I mean, I'm sure the paint was even in better condition, and like with the gray clouds, silver looks better. But I just remember thinking like, dude, everybody's necks, not snapping because I look so cool, but I'm like, they have to be in complete awe. Like when I saw my car, I literally had like R34s or R32s, his F80, Supras, R30 like ones, like the old Skylines. I'm like, and I was like, the E36 was like shining to me.
Yeah,
I was like,
it was such a special car.
Smokes.
Yeah, we had like
the wing, everything. I was like, this is it, dude.
And
like,
it still is like so mint. But I'm like, yeah, at the time, like every time I look back at it, I'm like an E36 is cool. Yeah. An E36 M3 is cool. But I'm like, I kept looking back and I'm like, we literally are sitting in, like when we were like standing outside, I look at it, I'm like, this is like the unattainable Euro spec E36 M3 that everyone's like, oh, like it's faster over there, and like that's the engine you want to import or something like that. And I'm like, he just has it, and we're driving it, and it's like,
I know when I like signed the papers, we have the DMV thing, and I'm just like driving. We had to go like to freaking Walmart for something, which. Oh, dude,
it was stressful.
The amount of stress I had parking that, and like this Challenger like honked at me because something happened. I was panicking, dude.
Every single time we go out of this like the state, and like I'm not saying it's a Utah thing, but I'm just like, it's not your hometown.
Like, get me home.
Oh no, I'm like, get me where I feel safe, 100%.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, and this was one of those Walmarts that you walk through and they have the gates and like security. So.
No, it was a little bit,
but yeah, no, that feeling was like unreal. And like that's something I'm like, this goes back because I wanted to talk about this more. Mm-hmm. People that you want something better, kind of like our buddy with the E46.
Yeah,
he constantly told me, yeah, I really want to, because he has an automatic convertible E46 M3, and he constantly told me, well, I really want a coupe and I really want manual, but I'm just like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying for you to ruin your life, but it's not that expensive. You dailied this thing, so you're already used to dailying an E46 M3. That's what you want. Sell this for the 15 grand you could, and go get, because like he had like the whole interior really nicely redone in what's it, a cinnamon, like fully done. It looks like it was brand new, and like the cinnamon interior, and his paint was really good. He had good wheels on it. I'm like, you probably could have gotten like 17 for that thing.
Yeah.
And then he goes and spends 21 on an E46 coupe and the color that he wants. I'm like,
I know, dude.
Bruh.
Honestly, like,
just get the car you want. Like the feeling that you have.
It's
like when I was driving home from that, there was nothing that could top that. And I'm like, that made it worth it. Every penny I spent, that people think that I may have overspent. Some people think I got a good deal. It doesn't matter. I'm like, that made it worth it. Then I'm like, yeah.
No, that's how I felt when I had the M6. So it's like, yeah, even though it's spending more, I'm like, I just never wanted to pull around a corner and be like, dang, some other, like, it's not about like some other guy or like a pride thing, but I'm like, you know what you really want, and there will be a moment when you see what you really wanted and you don't have it, and it feels kind of sucky. So when I had the M6 and it was a 1 of 100,
yeah,
I'm just like, there is no better M6. This is the M6, and I'm like, so no, I 100% agree. That's a,
I don't know. Yeah, again, we're not saying like
top feeling.
Put a bad situation of like
finances or something.
Yeah, like it's just find out what you want, and like there's a reason why I didn't go grab a, I don't know, like E30 M3 and try to get that money, because those were 70 grand minimum at that time. I'm like, I found basically what I liked my price range to be. Even though now I'm like, I kind of prefer E36s over E30s, but it doesn't really matter. But I'm like, yeah, I found the price I wanted, and that's what I went for. I didn't go for a $100,000 911. So yeah, I'm like,
yeah, no,
just find that level that you can do it, and get the car that will make you like the most happy.
Yeah,
because you cannot tell me that a convertible automatic 350Z is going to be the one. Like,
no offense to anyone that has that, but I think they know what we're talking about. They wish they could have something else, and it's like,
and that's that's not us saying you wish you were us. It's just
no, it's just like
we've all been there.
Like,
I had a CRZ that was a 2011, and the other guy in town that had that wide body that was like way cooler and is the more modern one, so had better interior and everything. I was like, dang,
yeah. And it's really not about like saving money, I guess. Really, I mean, it is partly, and it's not about like get richer, but it's more about like patience, right? Like I remember even just like my truck, I was like, I know I want black, and I know I want it to be like the specific trim with the specific interior and the specific cleanliness, and it's like I waited like a long time. It was probably like 2 or 3 months of like checking F-150s all the time. And there was a few times that I'm like, oh, maybe like what are the smaller cab, gray,
extended cab, yeah,
extended cab. Like I could live with that. But I'm just like, no, just wait. And then eventually it's like perfect price, perfect trim, perfect look. Grab it, and it's like, bro, I love that thing. I still, every single time I see one of those, I'm like, yeah, dude, I liked that truck. And the same thing with like every Civic I've owned. It's like I've owned one coupe. The rest have all been hatchbacks, and every single time I've like bought a Civic, I'm like, maybe I'll just get like a coupe.
Yeah.
Or maybe like sedans could be cool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I think some people like those more than a hatchback. I'm just a hatchback guy. So when I did get the coupe, yes, like I do think specifically an EK coupe can look really cool. I'm not as into the EG coupes, but like the EK coupes I think can look really cool. Obviously they made the SI in it. But I'm like, every single time I'm like, yeah, but if you get a hatchback, you'll just be like way happier.
The question we've always done is, if you're driving that coupe and blank drives by,
how are you going to feel?
How are you going to feel? And I'm like, that's the perfect thing to do. Like, because if I was driving a US E36, some guy with the Evo showed up, how would I feel? Because I probably would have spent 23 grand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I wanted a clean one and I wanted low mileage. I bought my Evo with 83,000 miles for mid-30s. Yeah. I'm like, a US with 80,000 miles back then would have been mid-ish, maybe 20s. Even high 20s. Yeah. And I'm like, that's because that's what the prices were at the time. So I'm like, yeah, if I would have showed up and a guy for like $10,000 more had an Evo, I just would have been like, dude,
you have to do it.
Like,
and that's what
I'm lacking 100 horsepower here, man.
Well, that's what I feel about the RS. Like when I did buy it, is like, and honestly, that is one where I'm like, I could have gotten just like 1 or 2 years old, 40 to 50,000 miles, would have paid a lot less, and maybe would have kept it because of that, because I could like modified it and like felt good about it. But I'm like, when I learned there was a special edition, and it was like the last year they're gonna make it, and I think they added like a better LSD or something like that, and then it was like the special red with the black roof and the black. I was just like, I just gotta. And then it was so fun to have some car that was like so like unique.
It's fun to go to meets. It's fun to talk to people about it and like geek out. Like, this is why I bought this year. Like when I got to tell people, I'm like, yeah, I got the one with the aluminum doors and it's the Evo, and it's like, I waited for this and I got this.
I know that we're kind of like the Corvette guys that are like, so this year actually, and didn't come in a lot of them.
But here's the thing, we're like those Corvette guys, but we actually drive it.
Yeah.
We actually drive our cars.
Yeah, and we work on it, and that's how I feel about my Civic right now. I'm like, I can't imagine. Like a CRX is up there, but I'm like, when it comes to Civics, I'm like, I can't imagine a better Civic, because I like the EG the most for the hatchbacks between the EK and the EG. And I'm like, I worked on it and I put what I think is the best bang for your buck engine, right? I'm like, I guess the Type R would be better, but I'm like, I just never have had an interest in like paying that much for it. But I'm like, I worked on it. I put a GSR into an EG hatch, and some might say, and I think I was even in this bandwagon when I had like the SI, that like SI is better even though it's heavier because it has all these extra features. But I'm like, I have the lightest EG with an engine that I put into it that I think is the best engine. And so I'm like, right now I'm like, I can't really do much better. I'm like, I guess if like
an SIR shows up.
Yeah. I'm like, I can import one, that's better. And like, if I had gotten the shell and it was like, wow, does this roll off the show floor today? Like, yeah. But I'm like, that's part of the fun. I want to restore it.
Yeah. So we're definitely all for entirely possible. But no, it's like, definitely we are all for building your car just like you did. And I'm like, and I'm currently building the E36, but it's nice to get what you want in the beginning. It makes the whole journey a lot better.
Totally.
So, I mean, that was the kind of, I mean, that E36 and then us making that video has kind of made us like realize, like coming from Seattle where it was imported into and being like, this is sick. Like, this is, and like we made that really cool video and like that feeling. It just kept going after that. You got the M6 after that, and you had the journey of like it blowing and rebuilding. And I'm like,
oh yeah, a lot of cool journeys.
Yeah,
and it's just like there's so many more, and I think we have a lot of goals for Motor Kings.
I know, you know what's cool is like this wasn't that long ago. Remember when we were literally sitting? You were filming us in that like the not like past Desert Color.
Whatever, oh yeah, not like
in that little cul-de-sac thing.
We had the M6 and the E36, and we made 2 videos.
That was almost 3 years ago. That was 2.5 years ago. I'm like,
I know.
Insane.
I know. It goes by quick.
Yeah, it goes by. And I'm like, dude, think about this. In 2 years, we'll have all these stories again.
No, I know.
One more.
So many good times. And I feel like, I mean, if we'd been consistent, where would we be? But yeah, it's fun. And there's so many cars I want. And
it's always, there's no better time than now. Yeah. But I I think the starting of Motor Kings is.
It's goated. And like
I know.
And like it's
when
so
people
funny.
research us on Wikipedia.
Well, I do think like it might be prideful, but like I, as a person who wants to do YouTube and wants to do like content and stuff, I look at people that inspire me and their beginnings all the time. Like when I wanted to do like gaming YouTube, I look at PewDiePie's first videos and I'm like, okay. He was awkward. He had bad camera. He had played the dumb games, and I'm like, I just got to do that for a while. And whenever I think about how we started, I'm like, I hope that one day there's some person that's inspired by us that looks back at our beginning and is like, dang, like that's such a cool story, and I want to have my story. So I don't know. I just think it's all very cool.
Yeah.
So.
No, I know. So basically, moral story is do what you want, but think what you want.
Yeah.
Like think about it first. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, because
Well, think about it.
I'm like, we just really told him like, don't do what you want with your car. You have to buy the one that. Oh no, actually, do what you want. But
you know that you wanted the better car.
Achieve what you want. Yeah. I'm like, no, do what you want.
You're not proposing, are you? Well, think about it, will you?
Think about it.
So, anyways, guys, thank you for watching episode 1 of the Motor Kings podcast.
This is what titled
The Beginnings.
Story? Yeah, the beginnings.
Yeah.
The making of the two car guy brothers.
The Samson Bros. I don't have an outro, but we'll figure out what title and everything.
We should have.
Thanks for watching.
We should have our new friend listen to this. Be like, want to learn about us? Watch this 2 hours, man.
Every single time we meet someone, they're like, so like, where do you? Yeah. Don't ask me questions. Just we got a podcast for
Get
that.
this QR code. Takes us right to the beginning.
Yeah, we start playing it. So welcome to the first episode of Motor Kings podcast.
2 hours later. What do you think?
Yeah, he's like, wow, you guys are so interesting. All right, guys. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And listening.
And listening and joining in for any shorts that we may make. But this isn't going to be in that, so it doesn't matter.
I love you guys.